Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. So, before we begin, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from learning anything which will be of harm to us, or from learning anything which will actually not benefit us in any ways. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our hearts from learning something and then misusing it, or from learning something and then forgetting it or using it in the wrong way. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us that which will benefit us, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to benefit from that which He's already taught us. Ameen. With that, we left off at the early life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we saw that after the Hilf al-Fudul, around the time when he was, after the rebuilding the Kaaba and the Hilf al-Fudul, he was past the age of 35 sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And from there, around the time he hit 37, 38, 39, those years, what happened was that the Prophet began to go into a state of seclusion, and we're going to talk about that. First of all, when he was growing up, one of the characteristics that he had was that he was one of the few people that were known to be following the religion of Hanif or Hanafiya. Hanif simply means the people who are following monotheism, and you could say people who are trying to follow the religion of Prophet Abraham from the beginning. Now here's the thing, when it comes to the Hanif, the people who were following this religion, there were very few, actually, very few of them, because the vast majority were practicing idolatry, particularly in Mecca. But there were some notable ones. Few of them were poets, few of them were just average people. They did not know exactly how to follow the religion of Prophet Ibrahim, because things had changed so much. So what they were actually doing was, they knew that Prophet Ibrahim did not worship idols. They knew that for a fact, no doubt about that. But in terms of exactly what his style of worship was, what exactly were the code of laws, all of these things, they knew a little bit, but they didn't know enough. So what they would do is they say, we know what he would avoid, and he would avoid idol worship. He would avoid certain adultery, for example. He would avoid prostitution. He would avoid stealing. He would avoid killing. He would avoid all of these things. So they would be practicing that. And when it came to worship, they would try to pray in such a way where they felt that this is most closest to the way that Prophet Ibrahim used to pray as well. So these people are known as Hanif. Okay, this is the religion that they were called. They were not organized, and there were just a few people scattered around, pretty much in different areas. The Prophet ﷺ was among those people. He was among those people, and there were a few other people who were like him. Now you'll find this in many statements where he talks about how he was before Islam. So some of the things that the Prophet ﷺ observed, that one, he prayed. He never prayed to an idol. He never went and worshipped an idol or gave any special respect towards an idol in any way whatsoever. And the way that he ate, he used to eat only things that were slaughtered in the name of Allah only. Because the name of Allah was there prevalent among the Arabs, even though they were worshipping other deities. So he would be eating, his diet as well was according to the way of Prophet Ibrahim, and he would not eat anything which would come his way that's been sacrificed for the idols. So no idol worship, no eating anything that's been sacrificed for the idols, no immorality, and worshipping only Allah. This is some of the things he grew up on. Before the age of 40, when he got around that point, he began to have certain dreams. And these dreams that he had, they would come true exactly the way he had those dreams. And after this started happening, he started noticing certain things happening in his life, certain things changing out of the normal. And because of that, he said, I used to be inclined towards seclusion. I wanted to be alone for a while. Now understand, when we're talking about seclusion of the Prophet Muhammad is very different from the seclusion of Descartes, or a philosopher, or someone who says, I want to go and just think about things. Some people, they say, I just want to be alone for a while. His seclusion was not that. If you understand his background. His background was, this is the religion that he was on. So he wants seclusion, one, to think about life, but also to worship Allah. So there's a double thing. It's very, very important to understand this point. Because if you don't understand this point, you will equate him with being like one of these philosophers who may believe in Allah, don't believe in Allah, and they simply just go and want to think about life. There's a big difference. So he began to go for seclusion. Some of these seclusions would last weeks, some of them would last days. Now think about it very carefully. A seclusion for weeks, up in the mountains. Most of the places he would go into the mountains. One of his favorite destinations was the cave of Hira. The cave of Hira, which is a few miles away from Mecca. Now keep in mind, this is the desert. It's burning hot. And if you're going for a few weeks, you need to take provisions with you. And you're going alone. So he's going alone, taking the food that he needs as a provision. He would go and stay in the cave. He would be worshipping Allah. He would be reflecting upon the society and doing all of these things. And then when his food rations would run out, he would go back home, maybe work a little bit, maybe do whatever it came, and then he would go back for another seclusion. So he was doing this for quite some time. At the age of 40, one time when he was praying and he was reflecting upon life, during this time, what we have is the revelation comes to him. So during one of the nights where he was in the cave of Hira, in the month of Ramadan, a form appeared to him. Now this form, he had never seen this form before in his life. So he's very confused. Imagine yourself in that position. You see a form right in front of you that you've never ever seen in your life. Now this form comes and tells him, read. Now, scholars say that most probably there's something that the form had with him. Right? There's something that he had with him and he's telling him, pointing to him, read. Read this. So he responds by saying, I'm not able to read. Which brings us back to a point, is that the fact that the Prophet was raised illiterate. And in this society of Mecca at this time, the majority of people were illiterate. And being illiterate was not considered to be something to look down upon. Even though people generally from honorable societies, honorable lineages, they used to be taught to read and write. But keep in mind the difference between all the other notable and honorable people among that region and between the Prophet Muhammad is that he grew up in a family where he was an orphan. Did not have a mother, did not have a father. Remember when his wet nurse, Halima, was going to pick up a child? She did not want to pick him in the first place because the favor that was going to come back. So you find that this is one of the reasons why he was illiterate. Now this point is made in the Qur'an. It's been accepted by the vast majority of scholars. But still you do find particularly Western scholars trying to adamantly insist that no, he was illiterate somehow. But without going into this, you should just know that there's a reason why they insist that. Because the fact that he was illiterate actually strengthens his message. So just keep that point in mind. We won't get into too much detail. So this angel came and asked him, read. And he said, I am not able to read. Very honest answer. And of course he's scared. There's a form that's in front of him. The form is not human. If there was even a human being that was there at night in a cave where no one else is around, it would be scary enough. Now this form appears to him and says, read. He says, I do not know how to read. This form grabs him and squeezes him. And in his own words, he says, it squeezed me so hard that I thought I'm going to fall down. I thought I'm going to pass out. So he squeezed me so hard until I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore, then he let me go. And then he repeated again, read. And he answered again, he said, I don't know how to read. The form grabbed him again, squeezed him so hard, and then let him go. And he said, read. He said, I don't know how to read. Again, what else is he supposed to say? He said, I don't know how to read. The form squeezed him, grabbed him, squeezed him again for the third time, until he couldn't take it anymore, let him go. And then the form said, read in the name of your Lord who created. He created man from a clinging form. Read, your Lord is most generous. He taught by means of the pen. He taught man what he did not know. So these verses were recited upon him. He said, okay, you're not able to read, I'm going to read it to you. And the interesting thing is, the same command that this form was making to him is the first word that was actually coming out. Again, the read, and that becomes part of the revelation. That becomes part of these verses. So imagine this experience taking place. What's important about this experience is a few things. Number one, that the fact that he himself was awake at this time. Right? He could tell the difference between being awake and not being awake. What is one of the reasons why he was squeezed? And why does he have to be squeezed 3 times? We know who it was. Why does he have to be squeezed 3 times? In case someone imagines that they're actually in a dream. What do you do if you say, I'm having a dream? Maybe if I pinch myself, I'll wake up. This is beyond a pinch. This is a squeezing until you can't take it anymore. In case you still think you're dreaming, Let's squeeze you one more time. If you're still not sure, let's squeeze you one more time. Making it very, very clear that he understands and he knows that this is not just some random dream that you've been seeing. These things that you've been seeing is not something normal. This is something out of the ordinary. So what does he do, as a natural person would do, was very afraid at what's taking place. He remembered these verses immediately. They were etched upon his heart, went directly in his memory. But he ran down from the mountain. He ran down from the mountain, immediately went straight home and went to his comfort zone because he was in shock. Now when a person is in shock, they do two things. Number one, they run to their comfort zone. And number two, when a person's in shock, for example, if you go into the hospital, you're in a state of shock, one of the things that they do is that they cover you with the blanket. This is even in modern medicine. So he ran home in shock, he went to his comfort zone, who is his wife. And he told his wife, cover me, because he wanted to feel comforted that something is covering him. Very natural reaction. So the reaction was fear. He didn't know what was happening to him. So what happened when he ran home, he needed to get a second opinion on what took place, because he's never experienced this before. So what was his wife's opinion? His wife told him, well, before we look at that, one of the things that he was thinking in his mind was that people at that time, they also believed in spirits. They believed that there are some type of bad forces out there. There were people who were sorcerers. There were people who were, what you call like witches, for example. They do sorts of magic and all of these things. So he thought, this could be something bad happening to me. I don't know what it is, but it could be something bad that's happening to me. So he expressed his thought that, you know what? What's happening to me? Maybe something bad is happening to me. This was his initial reaction. So what did his wife say? His wife responded and she said, no, you help the poor, you support the needy, you give ease to those people who are in debt, and you do many other good things, so Allah will not disgrace you. God will not disgrace you. What does it tell you about Khadija? It tells you that she was also one of the people who are in the same religion, Hanif religion. And also, her statement reveals what type of character he had before the prophethood. And her statement also reveals an important thing, is that the person who knows you best is usually the people who are closest to you. They're the people who are going to be able to describe you in the best of ways if they're being fairly honest. Okay? So this is very important to keep in mind. This is the statement that she made. So she reassured him, don't worry, nothing bad is going to be happening to you. Allah will not allow something bad to happen to you like this. So he's a little bit more comforted. But she said, let's get a third opinion. You saw one thing, I'm giving you a second opinion. Let's go for an informed and third opinion. So she took him to one of her cousins who was named Waraqa ibn Nawfal. Now Waraqa, early on, he was a very, very old man at this time. Early on, he was upon the religion of Hanif as well. But he was one of the people who did not simply stick with the religion of Hanif, but he actually became a Christian as well. Now when I say he became a Christian, meaning that he would go and read from the scriptures. But at this time you would find different types of Christians as well. You will find Christians who are worshipping Prophet Isa, Prophet Jesus, and you will also find Christians at that time who were, you can say, Unitarian, or you can say that they were only worshipping Allah, they were not worshipping Prophet Isa, they were taking him as a prophet. So Waraqa was one of those people. He was most likely he was one of those people. Okay, so he knew Hebrew, so he knew the Torah, he knew the Bible, and he could read Hebrew. So he knew about certain prophecies, he knew about prophethood, he knew about revelation. He was not like the other people who were Hanif, who only knew a few of the remaining rituals of Prophet Ibrahim from their time, when he built the Kaaba and that left on. So he knew a lot more, so in a very informed opinion. So he told Waraqa exactly what happened. He said, this is exactly what happened to me. A form appeared, told me to do this, squeezed me, came home running. This is exactly what happened. Waraqa responded, he said, by God, you are the prophet of this community. The angel of revelation that came to Moses has come to you. And he said, your people will reject you, harm you, kick you out, and they will fight against you. Now, where is he coming up with all of this? You know, it's because this is a person who's not just an average reader of the book. This is a person who understands, who studied the lives of all of the other prophets. looked at how the reaction has come to them, looked at how the angel of revelation and in what state came to Prophet Musa. We won't get into the details, but he's someone who's analyzing all of this and saying, everything you've told me so far, and looking at the character, because he was known for his character as well, everything you told me so far indicates to me, based upon my knowledge, that you're a prophet from Allah. This is exactly what his informed opinion led him to believe. So now what did the Prophet respond at this time? His response was the first response of all of that. Imagine you're being told you're the prophet of this community. The angel of revelation has come to you. Huge thing, right? He knew something's going on. He said, they're going to kick you out, they're going to fight you and all that. What's his first reaction? First reaction is, they're going to kick me out? They're going to kick me out? Because the most shocking thing to him, it's not so shocking that he's a prophet. What's shocking to him is, my people who love me, they call me Sadiq al-Amin. They call me the trustworthy. They deposit their money with me. They love me so much. Why would my own people kick me out? This is a tribal society. Your own tribe doesn't go against you. You know, your own people, your own uncles and stuff, they don't go against you. You're all in it together. You know, so why would they kick me out? Are they really going to do that? And he said, of course. Yep. Everyone who came with the same message was attacked by their people. Everyone who came with the same message was attacked by their people. So based upon his experience, that this is something that's very common, it's very normal, get ready for it, because it's going to be coming. And then he said, if I live to see that day, I will fully support you. If I live to see the day when the people are kicking you out, I'm one of those people who's with you. So this shows you the mentality of Waraqa as well. He's not just a person who's learned, who knows the stuff and says, you know, I believe in you, but you know, when push comes to shove, you know, you're on your own. No. He said, no. I will be there and I will fight, I will stand up. And this is an old man who could barely move. So he made this statement and he was one of the people who believed in him initially. Okay? So you can almost say that he's technically the first Muslim. But what happened was, very, very soon after, Waraqa passed away. That's all that he needed to say. This was his mission. He passed away immediately. And later on, the Prophet said, and Waraqa is going to be in paradise. He's one of the people in paradise. So this is what happened. After he passed away, there was a pause in revelation. There was a pause that took place in revelation, and another revelation did not come for a little while. So the revelation began initially, and then there was a short pause, and then it started coming afterwards again. Now what is the reason for that pause? People have taken this pause in revelation. SubhanAllah, some people have the most amazing imaginations. Especially Western Orientalist scholars, they have super imaginations, subhanAllah. And what they've done is they've taken this pause and they've just spinned it out of proportion. Anyways, not to get into that, but what is the reason for the pause? One of the things is to want and wait that the revelation is coming again. One thing. Second reason is that some people will say that they will throw out this conclusion that maybe he was just seeing things. You know, there are some people who have this illness, schizophrenia. He's just seeing a figure, he's seeing something, seeing this. And if you look at the medical definition of schizophrenia today, based upon all the medical research we have, you don't find something like this. You don't find one instance, a giant pause, and then it continues coming all the time. So what it does, it breaks the entire argument about whether this would be able to fit the profile or not fit the profile. So there's many reasons for this pause in revelation. So what happened afterwards? Then the message begins. Then after that pause took place, the messages, the revelations came successively. And they started coming for a period of 23 years. The next revelation was, O you who's wrapped up in your cloak. Who's wrapped up in his cloak one time, arise and warn. Now it's telling him you have a job, you have a mission to do. The first revelation was simply telling him, read. This is a revelation from your Lord. He taught man what he didn't know. Meaning that you're about to go and learn something that no one else knew and no one else would be able to know on their own. Now comes the second revelation. Arise, you wrapped in your cloak, arise and warn. Proclaim the greatness of your Lord. Purify yourself. Keep away from filth. Do not be overwhelmed. Be steadfast in your Lord's cause. Now there's a mission. The mission has actually began and these revelations are coming to him. So he's instructed to warn other people. So it's not something that simply he keeps to himself, but he's supposed to go and tell other people and warn other people. Now, What is the message? The primary message is to give up idolatry, only worship your Lord, proclaim the greatness of your Lord, and other revelations came talking about giving up idolatry and only focusing on the worship of Allah. And immorality. Other immoral acts that they were doing, for example, adultery, prostitution, burying their children alive, all of these other things, we're told that don't do these things are immoral now. This was the beginning content of the revelation. So what happened was, at this time, there was what's known as the secret call. So he began to call people, but he began to call them in secret. This was not done for the first 3 years. This was not done in the open. It was not done going and making a loud proclamation and a loud call. That's very important because it gives us a model that when you begin, where do you begin? One of the places where he began was with his own family. And the way that he began was in secrecy. The people who were closest to him, that's the people who got warned first. So the first person he called was his wife. And Khadija was technically, besides Waraqa not counting him, because he didn't formally get the mission yet at that point, Khadija became the first Muslim, the first person to believe in him, the first person to accept him, his own wife. Now why would Khadija accept this call? And why so quickly? On what basis? Because she's skilled in the Arabic language and she sees the wisdom behind these verses. She probably understood, yeah, there's something special about the verses, but not that much of the Quran has been revealed yet. So what was it that led her? Number one, she was on the religion of Hanif anyways. Number two, she knows the character of her own husband. She's been living with him for how many years up until this point? They were married when he was 25, now he's 40, 15 years or more, 15, 16 years, right? So this is how long they've spent together. She knows his character. She said, yes, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a prophet. And she described his character in the previous statement. The next person to accept Islam is Ali. Now Ali, as we mentioned a little bit, he's the cousin, okay, of the Messenger of Allah. He's the son of Abu Talib. Ali, the son of Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, who was taking him into his care. Now what happened was, remember we talked about how Abu Talib was not one of the wealthy men. Even though he was one of the notables, he was not very wealthy. So what happened was, because he was in one time there was a famine, and he was really hit hard financially. He was going through a financial crisis. So one of the things that they did was, they convinced him that, you know what, we'll take some of your kids for you and we'll help raise them. So the Prophet was one of the people who took Ali into his own house. So Ali grew up in his own house, along with Khadija, and he accepted Islam when he was only 10 years old. When he was only 10 years old, okay? Zayd ibn Haritha, okay, without getting into the details of his story, Zayd was his adopted son. Originally he was a servant of his. He freed him and he adopted him as a son. So he became the adopted son of the Prophet, and he was the one who the third one who accepted Islam. So people directly, immediately in his household, no one's rejecting. Okay, no one's rejecting, no one has any issue with it. Then you have his close friend, Abu Bakr. So Abu Bakr, who was a very close friend of his, was the next person to accept Islam. So what you notice here is all the people who are closest to him, who know him the best, they're the people who are coming into Islam because they know the character, they know how he is, they know that he's not a liar, they know he's not a magician, they know he's not a sorcerer, they know he's not a poet. So he must be a prophet. Now Abu Bakr was very instrumental in spreading Islam, because Abu Bakr was not one of those people who said, you know, I believe this is amazing, I'm 100% with you. Abu Bakr immediately goes and starts calling everyone else to Islam, all of his friends. So he wants this, you know, pyramid scheme kind of thing. You know, I'm going to go and invite everybody. So he starts going and inviting, and the people whom he invites become one of the most prominent Muslims. In fact, the leaders of the Muslims later on in the future were among the people who Abu Bakr was actually inviting directly. And because of his missionary efforts, you can say, many important people came into the fold of Islam. So this secret call lasted for about 3 years. And in these 3 years and after, they used to meet in the house of a man by the name of Al-Arqam. So Al-Arqam was a man, he had a house, and the house was actually very close to the Kaaba, not very far from the Kaaba. Which is important because this is a very strategic location. You see, if you have a lot of people who are gathering in another part of Mecca, well, what are all those people doing there? Secretly going, what are they doing over there? But everyone's near the Kaaba. So if there's a bunch of people and they're close to the Kaaba and you slip into a house from the corner, it's inconspicuous. You're not you're not really showing anything. So they were very secret, they were very careful about how they would, show their Islam and where they would meet as well. So they would meet in the house of Al-Arqam. And that shows you a very important point, is that these people were not the early Muslims, and there were many, okay? About, like maybe 30, 40, something like that. They would not simply just say, well, we believe, and then business as usual. But they realized they would meet in the house of Al-Arqam. Every new revelation that would come down, they would be there. The Prophet would tell them what the new revelation was. They would learn it. They would talk about it amongst each other. When the Prophet would leave, there were still people staying there in the house of Al-Arqam, learning about Islam, trying to see how they can practice Islam. This is what we call today like a halaqah, like a group, like a small group of people studying and trying to bring Islam into their lives. This is exactly what was taking place at this time in the beginning, early Islam. Then you have in the 4th year, AR means after revelation, okay? Public declaration of Islam. So now a revelation comes where the Prophet is told that he is supposed to publicly announce in the entire Makkah that this is the mission. And this is what's going to be happening now. So he goes and climbs up on a mountain by the name of Mount Safa. Okay, this is the same place, according to some sources, where the man who was in what's known as Hilf al-Fudul, the coalition to protect the weak, the same man who came from Yemen when he was oppressed, they say he jumped on the same mountain and he started calling the people, because this is a place where you broadcast. It's like an emergency broadcast, emergency broadcast system comes right on top of this mountain. And everyone knows, in case of any major emergency, if someone's on the mountain, that means you drop everything and you at least send someone to go find out what the news is. Okay? So this is exactly what he was doing. He got up on the mountain, Mount Safa, and he issued an urgent alert. Issued an urgent alert. And what did he say? He said, like a test, test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is exactly what he did. He told the people when they all gathered, would you believe me if I told you that there's an enemy behind the hill ready to attack the city? Very, very profound statement. Think about this statement very carefully. He's standing on the mountain, right? The people are standing in front of him over here. And he's on the mountain, they cannot see through the mountain. But he can turn around and he can see on the other side of the mountain because he's on the top. No one else is on the top. He's asking this question to test them, saying, look, I'm in a position right now on top of a mountain where I can see behind me and you can't see. If I were to tell you that there's an enemy coming right now, an entire army coming to attack the entire city, would you believe me or not? So basically the question he's asking is, despite the fact that you cannot see, would you trust me when I told you that I'm able to see something that you're not able to see? Would you trust my statement? And they said, of course we would. You are a person who's known to be trustworthy. You're not a lying person. Everyone knows you to be trustworthy, right? You know about the rebuilding the Kaaba, very good reputation. Of course we would. So then he went and made a statement, if you reject the message of Allah, you will be doomed. Straight to the point. Now why did it come straight to the point like this? Is because even though Islam was there in secret, they knew about it. They knew about Islam. The problem was, it's not like it was so secret that nobody knew about what was going on. They just didn't know the details. They didn't know that it's going to become a missionary religion in the sense that people are going to be, told that, what, you should be doing the same thing. They thought, hey, you want to do whatever you want, you do whatever you want. It doesn't affect us. It's not going to bother us. You can go and worship whatever you want. It's not a big deal. That wasn't a major problem in the beginning, even though they did keep it very secret. But here now he's saying, and there's obviously probably something else he said before this, but this was the general statement that's been recorded. If you reject the message of Allah, you'll be doomed. Straight to the point, meaning you know about the message that I'm bringing. You've heard the rumors, you've heard the things. I'm telling you that I'm getting a message that you're not able to see, just like I'm on this mountain and seeing what you're not able to see through the mountain. Now you would believe me on the army, why don't you believe me on this? Because the army, if it would make it through the city, you would be doomed. Right? If the army made it to the city, you'd be doomed. Here, if you reject the message of Allah, you're going to be doomed. Same thing like the army coming into the city. So the analogy applies 100% across the board. What happened? They were all quiet. They were all quiet. There was a silence. They were shocked. And they were just standing there. Don't know what to think. They don't know what to say. So what happened? his own uncle, Abu Lahab, after seeing the silence and seeing everything that's happening around him, he cursed him. He cursed his own nephew, which is a huge thing. Nowadays it's very typical, but at that time it was a major thing. Your uncle is cursing you, right? And then he left in protest. He said, you called us here for this? And he actually gave a curse statement at him, He said, die, fall down and die, I hope you drop dead. And he left. So all the people looked at Abu Lahab, his own uncle is leaving. So, wow, so everyone else started leaving as well. Because the people needed to go and they needed time to think about it. Now, the call has been made. The public declaration has been made. Now all the action starts. Okay, this is where everything starts. So the first thing that happens is, this message begins to be preached throughout Makkah. And one of the things that happens that was different now than, the verses that are revealed now talk very negatively about idol worship. It's not just about worshipping Allah now. It said, abandon idol worship, it's a horrible thing. Why are you doing this? Giving reasoning, giving explanations. Why would you worship this thing that you guys shaped with your own hands? So now the Quraysh, the people in Makkah who are worshipping idols, they feel offended. How dare you come and attack our religion? But it's a belief attack. Because we're trying to get you to understand that something is wrong here. So this is a reaction that they had. So what's the first thing they do? They start having open hostility against Islam. Openly hostile. They start going and say, this is ridiculous what you're doing, and they're upset and all of these things. Now remember, the Quraysh are the ones who are in control of the city of Makkah at this time. So when we say the Makkans or the Quraysh, sometimes we're going to use them synonymously. Meaning like when you say, the White House made this statement or something like that. It's the leaders. We're just talking about what the leaders are doing. Okay, and most of the people are following the leaders. Okay, and the leaders are all idol worshippers, and most of the followers are idol worshippers as well. So this open hostility begins. So Abu Talib decides that he is going to defend his nephew. Even though Abu Talib is also an idol worshipper. And he tells his nephew, he tells the Prophet, he said, I'm not going to accept that you're a prophet. I don't want to leave my own religion. But you're my nephew, I raised you, I'm not going to leave you. I will protect you. And there's a tribal system over here. Very important to understand. Tribal system. It's almost like gangs. If you're in one gang, you're in another gang. The people in your gang, they got your back no matter what happens. No matter what. And they're willing to die for you. No matter what stupid small thing you do, whatever it may be, they're going to protect you no matter what. That's how close and tight-knit family relations were in this tribal society. So he decides that he's going to defend him. So the Quraysh realized that, Abu Talib is stopping us. Now even though Abu Talib is among the Quraysh, he's the only one out of the rest of the people who are in control that is protecting the Messenger of Allah. So the Quraysh go to Abu Talib and they say, hey, you better stop this. You better stop him before we stop him. And if you don't stop him, we're going to remove you out of your position. So a lot of threats came to him as well. So what did he do? He goes to the Prophet and he tells him, look, I'm your uncle, I'm defending you, but you're going and insulting the idols that the people are quote unquote insulting. Meaning that he's saying don't worship them. Alright, so that's considered to be an insult in them. You're actually not insulting the idols themselves. And he says, people are giving this accusation against you. Can you make things easy on me? You're making it difficult on me. I'm going to protect you. I want to protect you. But make my life easier to protect you. With just tone down your rhetoric, change things around, do something so I'm not under such pressure. Okay? So what does the Prophet respond? He says, oh uncle, the famous statement. Oh uncle, if they place the sun in my right hand and they place the moon in my left hand, meaning the sun and the moon, like this is biggest things you could possibly have. I mean, if they gave me every single thing, no matter how much they bribed me with, in order that I leave this message, I would not leave this message. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he started crying. And he started walking out the door. And while he was crying, tears were coming out of his eyes, and he was walking out the door, that's when Abu Talib stopped and he felt some compassion. He said, no, come back. My nephew, come back. He said, you say whatever you want to say. Your uncle will protect you. So at this point in time, he said, no matter what you do, don't worry. I will protect you. Do whatever you want, even though he has not accepted the religion at all. He said, but I will protect you no matter what happens. Very important to understand the role of Abu Talib. Why? We're going to see the lesson later on, inshallah. We're going to see the importance later on. Why is it that Allah chose a person who did not enter into Islam? Up until his death, he did not enter into Islam. But why did He choose him to be one of the people who's going to be helping Islam the most? It's an important, subtle point which we'll talk about, inshallah. So Abu Talib said, say whatever you want. I will be there and I will protect you. Now, what happens? This is very, very early in Islam. This is still 4th year, right? So 4th year, the open declaration has been announced. Now the Quraysh, they're thinking, wait a minute. We have a major problem here. This guy had the audacity and the guts to go up on Mount Safa and make an emergency call and inviting us to this religion. And now we have the pilgrimage season coming up. And in the pilgrimage season, tribes from all around Arabia come all to Mecca. Now if this guy's going to go and call us to Islam, he's going to call all the tribes to Islam too. And I imagine what's going to happen if some of those tribes and all those different people coming to Mecca, what if they accept the message of Islam? Then we got a problem. So what do? We need to stop him. We need to do something before they even get here. We need to start planning right now. So immediately they began to plan. So what was their plan? They started this propaganda campaign. And they started deciding, we need to be unified in our propaganda. They started propaganda already. So he's a magician. He's a poet. He's a sorcerer. He's a madman. He's insane. One of the things they never said was he's a liar. Interesting. Because they knew he's not a liar. No, if you say he's a liar, now people will be like, what are you talking about? He's one of the most honest people. Why are you depositing your money with him, by the way? He was like a bank, actually. They would keep their valuables with him. And he would keep the things. Interest free. Okay? No commission, nothing. Right? This is how much they trusted him. So you can't accuse someone of being a liar because you're going to look like you're a fool in the end. They say, I don't believe that. So you got to think of something better. So they called him a sorcerer, they called him poet, they called him insane, they called him all these other things. Now the Hajj season is coming, the pilgrimage season is coming. They need to have a unified propaganda. Because if one of the leaders of the Quraysh in one part tells one tribe that, you know what, he's a sorcerer. And then in another part, they say, no, he's a poet, he just makes up this poetry. When these two tribes meet in Makkah at the Kaaba, and they start talking, they say, did you hear that he's a poet? No, I heard that he's a sorcerer. Oh, who told you that? And then all of a sudden, their legitimacy is gone. So they all need to be on the same page. So they get together and they have this meeting. And they say, what should we call him? They say, well, first of all, they said, let's call him a poet. And they say, well, okay, we can call him a poet. He's just like any other poet, makes up poetry and all that stuff. But they say, you know that if you take the verses that he's bringing, any of the meters that we use as poetry, there's like 15 meters, I forgot how many, it's like 15 or 18 meters that the Arabs used to have in their poetry. And they all fit on this category, like, the different beats and rhymes and how it works. They said, it doesn't fit any of them. No one's ever seen anything like this. So people, it's not a very good argument. So okay, let's go with insanity. Let's say he's just a crazy guy, There's some crazy people out there spitting out some things, saying, worship God, this and that. Well, they say he's crazy, don't talk to him. They say, but he doesn't display any signs of insanity, right? You have to have other signs of insanity. The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he solves people's problems, the way he delivers his address. There's no other signs of insanity on him, so it's not going to hold water. So they said, okay, let's call him a sorcerer. Let's say that he's a sorcerer, he's like one of these, black magicians or something like that. He's like going and bewitching people. That's how they're following him. So they said, look, we're familiar with what a witch or a black magician or a sorcerer looks like. We're familiar with what kind of character they have. We're familiar with how they dress. We're familiar with all of these things. He doesn't fit that description either. They said, yeah, but we got to do something. So they said, out of all of these different options that we have, we're going to go with sorcerer. Because sorcerer is the one that's going to scare the people the most. And the fear factor was taken into consideration. Very important. In propaganda, fear generally works very well. So they said, what we're going to say is he's a sorcerer, and he's a sorcerer that can divide your family members. Your children are going to be divided from you. Your wife and husband are going to be divided from one another. And they said, you want us to prove it? Look, there's some kids following Islam, and their parents are not. And look, there's a wife over there, she left her husband because she entered into his religion, and the husband's not there. See how he split the family apart? Now what's very important to them? Everyone has their own ideals, their own values that they really care about so much. Like today, people in America, they're obsessed with freedom, freedom, freedom. Someone says they're going to take your freedom away. Oh, at that time, it was all, family was one of the most important things. Says someone's going to mess up your family. Mess up my, no one messes with my family. So they said, okay, he's a sorcerer, and he's able to split up families. So they said, okay, we're going to go with this one. This is one that's going to scare the people the most. They won't even go near him. They won't even want to hear it because they're very, very scared. So what did they do? They had this united propaganda. They sent their analysts or their propagandists, their news reporters or whatever, to every corner of the city before the pilgrimage season. So that when every tribe comes in, before they can meet anybody, you got some guy in the corner of the city. Say, by the way, Tribe X, you're coming into the city of Mecca, just to let you know about the recent developments that have happened in Mecca. We have this type of food, just so that you know. We have these facilities. You haven't been here in a while. These things have changed. Also, we have this one thing that's going on. And then, by the way, there's also this one, this one sorcerer that's cropped up. You got to be very careful of him. He could split your entire family. And the tribes are going, oh, wow, thank you. Thank you very much for the information. You meet the next tribe. Hey, did you hear about that sorcerer? Yes, I did. Okay. Oh, we got to be very careful. Protect your family. Oh yeah, I got my family protected. Don't worry. So they all went and did their propaganda. Alright, so that's one thing that they did. When they realized that, Islam started still spreading. Still people were coming into Islam despite all that propaganda campaign. They said, this is ridiculous. We're trying all this propaganda. Still people are coming into Islam. It's not working on everybody. So they start persecution. Now, the persecution generally happened to the Muslims who were weaker. Now, weaker doesn't mean physically weaker. It doesn't even mean financially weaker. What's important in this society is the tribe and nobility. So those people who did not have what's known as tribal protection were the people who were hurt the most. Now, tribal protection means very much like a gang. When your tribe or another tribe comes to you, or any member from another tribe says, look, I'm giving you my tribal protection. You are under my care. Anyone messes with you, that means they mess with me. And if they mess with me, that means they mess with my whole tribe. And the entire tribe, when one nobleman from the tribe makes this statement, the entire tribe will back him up. So anyone messes with that guy, they just mess with another entire tribe. Your own tribe as well as another tribe. People are scared then. They say, whoa, I would mess with you, or maybe you and your brother, but not two tribes, that's too much, or three tribes. So they're very careful, very important tribal protection. So the people who were weaker, the ones who did not have tribal protection, were the ones who were harmed the most. But even some who did have tribal protection were also harmed. Okay? So, you have Bilal, for example. Just to give a few examples. Bilal was a black slave who came from Ethiopia, which was Abyssinia at that time. He was a slave already, and he was in slavery. What they used to do is they used to take him in the burning heat of the desert sand, place him on his back. Now if you see like 125 degrees sand in the noontime, and you have your shirt off, and you're put on the burning hot sand, it's very hot. If you go to Mecca, for example, today, even when you put your feet barefoot on the marble, it burns your feet. It literally burns your feet. That's how hot it can get. So imagine the burning sand out there in the desert, very, very hot. So his back is burning, and then they would take a giant boulder and they would place it on top of him. And he was being tortured this way, just because he had accepted Islam. But he would continue to repeat the statement. One. I only worship one God. I'm not going to go and worship any other gods. So Abu Bakr was one of the people who came, and he purchased him. He bought him and he set him free for the sake of Allah. So this was Bilal, one example of torture. Ammar ibn Yasir and both of his parents were among the weaker people as well. They did not have the tribal protection. While they were being tortured, his old mom and old dad were also being tortured as well. So while they were being tortured, it's interesting to note is that the Prophet used to pass by sometimes while they were being tortured, and he was not able to do anything. He was not able to do anything except tell them, have patience and you will be in paradise. That's all he was able to do. He didn't rush, he didn't go and try and do something or something, because he was not in a position at that time to do so, he was not ordered to do so. It's very important to understand the evolution, you could say, of the mission, of how it took place, how it unraveled, and how they acted in certain circumstances. Why? Because we have to understand that there will be circumstances that we will get into as well, where we may not be able to do something, except, say, have patience. Maybe to ourselves, or maybe to somebody else. And then we will see that later on there will be other circumstances where we can and we have to do something. So keep in mind that there are different circumstances, and circumstances require different actions. So what you find is his mother, for example, was killed. Mother and father were both killed. His mother became the first martyr of Islam, who was killed in the way of Allah. Ammar himself was one of those people who couldn't take the torture anymore. And he made the statement and he said, okay, I'll worship the idols. Tell me what you want to do. I'll say whatever you want to say. I'll do whatever you want to do. Just leave me alone. He was tortured to such an extent. But he was so sad, he really believed. He actually believed in Islam. He went back to the Prophet later on. He told him, he said, look, I said these things and I didn't mean it, but I did it. And he was so sad. The Prophet said, look, as long as you believe in your heart, that's what's important. If they do it to you again, you can go ahead and say the same thing again. Under certain circumstances, it may not be the most best thing to do, but it's permissible. It's allowed, and it does not mean that it's not allowed in Islam. You have Mus'ab ibn Umair, a very young man who was very, very spoiled. He used to wear the best clothes in Mecca. Right? He used to wear the best perfume that was imported from different countries. Very, very spoiled child. His curiosity, like a normal child, the young person, led him to Al-Arqam, the house of Al-Arqam. He was just curious, what Islam's going on, I just want to check it out, see what's going on. He goes over there. When he starts listening to the Qur'an, he became inspired. He accepted Islam on the spot. He became a Muslim. But he was not a stupid kid either. Spoiled, but not stupid. So he hid his Islam from his parents because he knew that his mother, for sure, would really, really have a major problem with this. So he kept his Islam secret, and he did not tell his parents at all. Until one day, somebody saw him, one of his relatives saw him praying in a corner somewhere in Mecca. And when they saw him praying, they said, hey, this is the Muslim prayer. He didn't say anything. He saw him, went straight to his parents. Looks like your son has accepted Islam. I saw him praying the same way that the Muslims are praying. So he got caught. And when he got caught, they imprisoned him inside of his own house arrest. His mother imprisoned him, shackled him, and he was not able to go out anywhere. So this until you return to our religion. So he was being oppressed in this way. But of course, young people are pretty smart as well. So he was able to get himself out of the chains and leave the country. And we'll talk about how he's one of the people who fled the country because he did not want to be persecuted anymore. Okay? Another person, we'll just go through a few people, and there's many other people who were being tortured. Uthman ibn Maz'un, very nice story. He was one of the people who accepted Islam. And you have one of the very, very powerful people who is related to him. So the man who is related to him came to him and said, look, I will give you tribal protection. Now this was one of the major enemies of Islam. One of the worst enemies of Islam. But look how important their tribal protection is. Their tribal relations are so important. He said, don't worry. I hate you Muslims, but because you're my family member, I'll take care of you. You have my tribal protection. So Uthman was fine for a long time. So I'm good to go, no problem. And then later on he started thinking about it. What kind of Muslim am I? What's wrong with me? I'm going to accept this guy's tribal protection? The protection of Allah is not enough for me? So he went back to him and he said, I renounce your tribal protection. I don't want it. Take it back. He said, are you sure? He said, I'm sure. Take it back. Everything for this. Allah will protect me. I only have to worry about that part. So then he said, okay, fine. Take it back. So after a little while, the same man, his relative, saw him one day, a little bit far away. He was going and calling somebody else to Islam. And he kind of got into an argument with one of the idol worshippers, talking about, how could you worship idols, and they're just these statues and all that. The idol worshipper got really mad. The pagan guy got really mad, punched him in the face. messed up one of his eyes. They punched him in the face. So then this guy, Al-Walid ibn Mughira, who was his relative, he walked over and he saw this happening. He walked over and he sees, man, Uthman is really messed up, his eyes messed up, black, really, really badly, black eye. He got punched badly. So then he went up to him and he said, he said, my relative, wouldn't it have been better for you to kept my protection so that this wouldn't happen to your eye? Wouldn't that have been better? I'm willing to go and restore it to you. I'm willing to give you the protection back if you want it. What did Uthman respond? He said, no, actually, my other eye is in need of what happened to the first eye. Because it happened for the sake of Allah. And he said, Wallahi, I'm under the protection of someone who's more powerful than you and who's greater than you. So I don't need your protection. So this is how some of the Muslims would react to this. And the actual words, he said, this eye is in need of what happened to its sister. When you have pairs, you call them sisters. So the other eye needs the same thing. Because it happened for the sake of Allah. This was their iman. This was the way that their belief was and manifested. Abu Bakr himself, even though he was a noble person, and he was a rich person as well, he also got beaten on the ground. And he was beaten up, kicked on the ground, beaten up with shoes and everything, so badly that it said that you could not tell the difference, you could not distinguish between his face and his nose. That's how swollen his entire face was. That's how badly he got beat up. Now the Prophet ﷺ, throughout a few years, he was also, people came and threw dirt in his hair. Intestines, while he was praying and he was in prostration, people would come and take intestines, and they took actually a fetus of a camel. And imagine with all a fetus, with all the junk and stuff coming from the inside, and they threw it on top of him. Can you imagine? To the Prophet. And one man came, he came and took his garment and he started strangling the Prophet until someone came and stopped him. So even he was undergoing persecution as well. This is what was happening to the Muslims only because they wanted to believe in this revelation. So what happened next? Because of all this persecution, it was very, very difficult for them. In the 5th year after revelation, they went and they took asylum in Abyssinia. Now in Abyssinia, there lived a just king, a very noble king, and he was a Christian. And his name was, in English, the Negus or An-Najashi. Okay? Now the Prophet actually told the companions who were weaker, he said, go ahead and migrate. You have my permission. Don't sit here and take this persecution. A very important point. He didn't simply say, he said to the family of Ammar at that time, they had no alternative. They had no other place to go. Now that they discovered this place, it's gotten really, really bad, it's time to go. So there's a time where there's a time to stay and have patience, and there's a time where it's time to pack your bags and go. So this is what he told them. He said, get your bags and go. And Mus'ab was among the people who migrated at this time. 83 Muslims migrated to Abyssinia. There was two migrations that took place. We're only going to talk about one of them in detail. Okay. Now, what happened was, you think that the Quraysh is simply going to leave the Muslims to just go? They had such an animosity against Islam. They're not just torturing them. They said, we don't want you to leave either. The problem is not with you being here. The problem is with you existing in the first place. So you're not just going to leave like that. So the Quraysh goes and sends 2 of their best negotiators, Abdullah ibn Abi Rabi'ah and Amr ibn al-As. Okay? 2 of their best negotiators. And their goal was to go to Abyssinia and to get the Muslims extradited back to their country. Now what is extradition? Extradition means get them kicked back or repatriated or whatever you want to call it. In order to do what? We find this happening throughout history. Is that get them back so that they can torture them. That was the goal. Because you're not able to go to Abyssinia and torture them in someone else's country. So we need to make sure we bring them back. Now we can get them. And now we can continue our torture campaign. So what happened was, when they made it there, they're smart. These are 2 smart guys. These are not fools. So they go there with some of the best gifts that Arabia could ever have. Now Arabia was getting imports from Yemen. They were getting imports from Syria. Now from Syria, in order to get to Abyssinia, if you look back on the map that I gave you in the beginning, you have to go very far from the Eastern Roman Empire. And they were Christian, and Abyssinians were Christians. So they had a connection with the Roman Empire. But you need to go all the way through here, through Egypt, down all the way in order to get to Abyssinia. So they brought some of the best gifts where they're already going from Syria down through Mecca. They brought some of the best gifts. What did they do? The first thing, Very brilliant tactic. They knew that the king had a council. And these council members that they had were among the people who would give him advice. You know, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, like a parliament kind of thing. They first, before they even met the king, they went and gave the gifts to the council members. They were just here, you know, as a visit, you know, just checking out how things are going. By the way, you know, we really love you guys, in case you didn't know. Here's some of the best gifts you've probably ever seen in your life. Here you go. Just wanted to tell you that, you know. And then now, the council members are bribed. They have a very good opinion of these men. So now they go to the king and they make this statement. They said, some young fools sought refuge in your kingdom. They left the religion of their people, but they did not enter your religion either. So now putting them, look, they're not among, they left our religion, but they're not in your religion either. So they're not amongst any of us. We have a relationship, they're not among you. They've come with a fabricated religion. They just invented something new, which neither of us recognize. The noblemen among their people have sent us to you to return them home. So meaning, I'm speaking to you who's a nobleman, a king, your council members, and we're also the noble people. These are like the junk of the society, you know. Just the noble people, the good people from the community have requested us, you know, to bring them back because they are their parents, the uncles, the family members, and they know better, you know, what to do with them. You know, they'll be able to help them more than you'd be able to help them. So why don't you just go ahead and send them back with us? Brilliant, brilliant technique. So then the council members who've already been bribed, they go, you know what, we think this is a very good idea. You know, you should go ahead and send them back. They've already been sold out right there. The king was an honorable king. He was a just man. So he immediately got upset. He said, you know, how dare you make this statement? You want me to go and just extradite these people without even researching anything? Without even hearing what they have to say? So he called them, very important point in judgment. He called them, and he became a Muslim later on. He called them in front of him, and he said, why don't you know, these people are making this accusation against you. What do you have to say? So Ja'far came, and Ja'far is also the son of Abu Talib. So like Ali, very young person, very, very eloquent. He gave a long speech, which we will not get into. It's in your slide. If you can read the small font, I don't know if you can. But he gave a speech. One second.
It's missing.
You don't have the slide? Do you have this one? Do you have the 5, this one? And then it stopped?
Yeah, then it stopped.
The last point's not on there.
Okay. What about the next slide is on there? Oh, that's the last of the slides? Oh, okay. Inshallah. Okay, khair, we'll get them to you, inshallah. So anyways, he gave a long speech. You get the speech, inshallah. He gave a long speech. And basically what he did in that speech was, he explained what background they came from. What were all the bad things they used to do. And he said, now this prophet has come to us. We believed in him. We've removed our idol worship. We stopped all the immoral things that we used to do. And because of that, our people have enslaved us. Very, very important point. One of the most brilliant speeches you could read, really. If you read it, just focus on every point. Brilliant. It shows you how important it is to be able to articulate yourself properly. So he was able to articulate himself in such a beautiful way, such an eloquent way. Don't read this, otherwise you're going to stop paying attention to me. Alright? And then he began to recite some verses from Surah Maryam. He began to recite some verses, and he chose the exact Surah Maryam. The chapter of Maryam, who's the mother of Prophet Isa, Prophet Jesus, and they know that this man is a Christian. Perfectly suitable to the time. And he was actually requested, read to me something of what you have. So he began to recite Surah Maryam. The priests and the king and the priests around there who were knowledgeable in religion, they started to cry. They were so touched because he told exactly how, how the story of Mary, of Maryam was there, how she was giving birth to Prophet Isa, how people had accused her, all of these things. You can see about the first 18 verses of Surah Maryam. The king cried and he refused to give them up. He said, no way I'm going to give these people up. They've convinced me. And they're going to be able to stay here as long as they like. Now, keep in mind, see, this was a brilliant statement, brilliant speech. But also, the first speech, where they came to the king, that was also a very smart way to call them back, extradite them because of this reason. So don't think that they gave up. So they went the next day, and they said, the 2 envoys from Quraysh, they went the next day, and they said, let's try one more time. So they tried one more time, and they said, do you know what they say about Jesus? Do you have any idea what they're saying? They're actually insulting your God, insulting Jesus, you know that? He said, no, really? So he called them back and he asked them, what do you have to say about Jesus? So he started explaining in detail what to say, and he said that we believe that he's a prophet, we believe that he's the spirit from Allah, we believe that he was born of the Virgin, etc., etc., and he told us to do this. And the Najashi, he said that he reached down, he picked up a small stick, and he said, there's no difference. The difference between what you're saying and what we're saying, or what Prophet Jesus actually came with, is no different than this small little twig. Meaning that we're so close, we're so similar, you can stay here no problem. So these two envoys failed, and they went back to Mecca. Now imagine the Quraysh are already upset, they already hate Islam. Now they saw these Muslims left, right? And now what happened afterwards, after they realized they failed, more Muslims migrated. So there was a second migration that actually took place. They went and migrated, more people started going, right? So now after all of this happened, the Quraysh are very, very upset. And when you're very, very upset, you have to go and try a new tactic. So we've tried propaganda, we've tried torture, we've tried extradition. Now we gotta go and we're gonna have... Oh, not yet. Okay, one more thing happens and then there's gonna be a boycott. So inshallah, I think our time is over, if that clock is correct. And inshallah, we're gonna continue on with this next week. Keep in mind, if you have questions, inshallah, you can either email them or you can pick up this note card and you can write it on the note card, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us a correct understanding of Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us act in the way that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the early Muslims acted, and in the ways that he was content with them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us patience in the difficulties that we face. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those people who's able to apply the things that we learn in this class, and to be with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in paradise on the Day of Judgment. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum.